The Senate set to vote today on a Democrat election reform bill. It's called the For the People Act. Now, how Senator Joe Manchin vote remains, that is unclear even after he proposed a compromise to that bill.
Manchin is the more centrist Democrat in the Senate, a proponent of bipartisan legislation. And without his support, the bill will likely go nowhere.
Now, a major sticking point between Democrats and Republicans has been this: voter ID, the requirements for that. You may remember what Georgia voting rights activist Stacey Abrams said about her state's Republican election bill requiring voter ID. Listen to her reaction.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer in D.C., he called this effort by Georgia Republicans, quote, racist, plain and simple, unquote. Do you agree? And is there any way for Democrats to stop these efforts?
Well, first of all, I do absolutely agree that it's racist. It is a redux of Jim Crow in a suit and tie.
All right, it is racist, according to Abrams. For a look at where this federal bill is going, who's actually ready to compromise, our panelists are here to react. Patrick Hahn is joining us, Republican Senate candidate from New York. We also have Kimerbly Klacik of the Red Renaissance PAC. We also have Kelly Hyman, Democratic strategist and attorney and author of Build Back Better. Good to see everyone here. I appreciate your time. Kimerbly, we'll start with you on this. First, a new poll conducted by Monmouth University on the heels of what we just played you shows 80% of Americans support requiring photo IDs at the polls. 71% also want in-person early voting to be easier. Why this big resistance to label voter IDs, requiring IDs to cast a vote as racist? Kim.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me this morning. But what we're seeing really is the bigotry of low expectations. Just yesterday, I actually was at the DMV and I posted a video on all my social media platforms showing just how easy it is to renew your license, and the same thing for getting a state ID. I believe, honestly, they're doing this push as we see the southern border is wide open. We have so many undocumented people coming across the border. And of course, it would be so easy for those individuals to go and vote in the next election. I know Stacey Abrams has been putting a lot of work into Georgia. She's recruiting a lot of candidates, but it makes it easier, I think, on her part when you don't have voter ID. But please believe there's nothing racist about getting your ID. You need your ID for so many things in life, and it is important. If anything, it protects the vote.
Well, we showed that statistic there. Again, 80% of people are in favor of having to prove who you are before casting your ballot. And again, with that Monmouth poll, if you look at the racial demographic, non-white participants were even higher in favor of it. 84% wanted voter ID. Now, we played for you at the beginning of the soundbite here what Stacey Abrams had said about the Georgia bill specifically. Now she claims to be on board with requiring voter ID. We'll show it to you in this tweet here. She sent it out. Her response when asked about Joe Manchin's compromise bill and whether she could accept it, even if it included voter ID requirements. She responded saying that's one of the fallacies of Republican talking points that have been deeply disturbing. No one has ever objected to proving who you are to vote. You see that quote in the Washington Post article here. Kelly Hyman, what's going on here? What's the change behind this approach when it comes to Democrats and voting in favor of voter ID?
Well, we have to remember that voting is a fundamental right, and everyone should have their opportunity to vote. And it's not just the fact about voter ID, it's the fact of suppressing people's votes and limiting people's access to the polls. There should be bipartisan support of letting people get to the polls and allow them to early vote. Also, it shouldn't be a crime if you're waiting in line a long time for someone to give you water while people wait long hours. This is about getting people out and voting and letting their voice be heard.
And I'll go to Patrick Hahn on this, because the other side of this whole argument is leaving elections delegated by the states and not federally. Your thoughts?
I totally agree that we should have the states take care of the elections that they have in the past. I fully support voter ID. We have ID for just about everything we do. You go to the doctor, you have to have an ID to prove who you are. Now they want to have passports for COVID vaccines. You board a plane, you not only need an ID, you need a passport come October. So voter ID is a fundamental right to keep the elections fair. And that's what I believe that we need to push forward. And the Republicans and Democrats should be on board with this. because of the amount of hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants came across the border. They're not citizens, and they can get hooked up in thinking they have the right to vote, which can offset an election at any given time, adding additional costs for challenges. So I fully support the voter ID. It should be a requirement across the entire country.
Okay. We'll wait again and see what happens. Bill not expected to pass, but of course we saw it pass in Georgia. And as we know, if you did want water in the line, you could get it from a poll worker. I think that was pretty well clarified there. Okay, Kim Klacik, Patrick Hahn, and Kelly Hyman, please stick around. We've got another topic we want to get to on the other side of this break.
Yeah, the Supreme Court dismissing a third challenge to Obamacare, with two key Trump appointees siding with liberals. We'll have President Trump's reaction to the decision when National Report continues.
Closed captioning brought to you by Nutrisystem.